Hook intro for YouTube audience. You won't believe what happened at this exclusive gala. A millionaire's wife publicly humiliated a woman just because of the color of her skin, but what she didn't know would completely change her life. Stay with me, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now because you won't want to miss the jaw-dropping twists ahead. Chapter 1: The Gala Incident. It was one of those glittering, star-studded nights in Manhattan, the kind of evening where the city seemed to sparkle with a million reflections from crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. Inside the grand hall of the prestigious Astoria Hotel, society's elite gathered in gowns and tuxedos, sipping champagne and exchanging whispers about mergers, donations, and political favors. Among them was Vanessa Carlton, a woman used to commanding attention wherever she went, not just because of her social status or her husband's wealth, but because she thrived on the illusion of control, the belief that appearances and pedigree mattered more than reality. Vanessa had perfected the art of being the arbiter of taste and morality in her circle, always ready to judge anyone who dared step outside her rigid standards of propriety. That evening, Vanessa's sharp eye fell on a young woman who had caught her attention not for her beauty or fashion sense, but because, in Vanessa's mind, the woman didn't belong. Alicia Monroe moved gracefully among the guests, carrying a tray of champagne with poise that suggested a lifetime of experience, though her uniform marked her as a server. Alicia was black, impeccably dressed in the hotel's standard uniform, her hair styled elegantly despite the long hours she had worked. Vanessa's gaze hardened, noticing the designer evening dress Alicia wore underneath her uniform jacket, glimpses of which were accidentally revealed when she bent down to pour a drink. In an instant, Vanessa's mind, clouded by prejudice, jumped to conclusions. How dare a lowly waitress wear such expensive clothing at her gala? With a cold smile, Vanessa approached Alicia, reaching out and ripping the fabric of the dress without warning. The sound of tearing material echoed through the hall, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. Alicia froze, shock and humiliation flashing across her face as gasps and murmurs spread among the elite. Vanessa, smug and self-satisfied, declared loudly enough for half the room to hear, "I thought you were just a waitress. Dressing like this is absurd." Her words dripped with superiority, a public assertion of the social hierarchy she had built in her mind. But then, from the other side of the hall, a new presence shifted the atmosphere entirely. David Carlton, Vanessa's husband, a billionaire known for his investments and philanthropy, had witnessed the scene from across the room. At first, his eyes narrowed, almost disbelieving what he was seeing, the woman he had married, indulging in cruelty so blatant and childish. Then, a spark of something far more dangerous than disbelief appeared, interest tinged with fury. David had always known Vanessa's tendencies, her obsession with status, but this brazen public display of arrogance crossed a line. Before Vanessa could gloat further, David approached, calm but undeniably commanding. His tall frame cast a shadow over the torn dress, and his voice, measured and controlled, cut through the chatter of the gathering. "Vanessa, step aside." There was a cold edge in his tone that made the room fall silent. Vanessa, flustered yet stubborn, laughed nervously, attempting to mask her embarrassment with a smirk. "David, don't tell me you're defending a server." David's expression did not change. He gestured toward Alicia, who stood frozen, clutching the remnants of her gown, her face a mixture of shock and confusion. "She's not just a server," he said firmly. "She's here tonight for a reason, and apparently, you haven't realized just how much talent and courage she carries." The revelation that would follow stunned Vanessa even more than the torn dress itself. Alicia, now standing straighter despite her humiliation, had a secret, one that even the elite few around them could not have anticipated. This was not just a chance encounter. Alicia was a woman whose intelligence, connections, and resourcefulness would soon ripple through Vanessa's carefully constructed world. She had a plan, and David's recognition of her potential was only the beginning of a reckoning that would expose every prejudice, every assumption, and every hypocrisy Vanessa had ever taken for granted. As David handed Alicia a napkin to hold the torn fabric, he whispered, "Not for Vanessa but for Alicia, I'll make sure you're recognized for who you really are." Alicia's eyes met his, and in that brief moment, a silent alliance was formed. Vanessa's anger, however, was immediate and explosive. She stormed off, murmuring threats and promises of social revenge, but the seed of her undoing had already been planted. The gala continued around them, glittering and oblivious, while in the middle of the room, the lives of three people, Vanessa, David, and Alicia, had shifted irrevocably. What seemed like a single act of cruelty was about to trigger a chain of events so intricate and dramatic that it would leave the elite of New York questioning their assumptions about privilege, talent, and the true cost of underestimating someone they thought was beneath them. Unbeknownst to Vanessa, Alicia's story stretched far beyond the gala, reaching into boardrooms, international events, and hidden networks that Vanessa could never hope to penetrate. And David, quietly assessing the situation, knew that supporting Alicia wasn't just about correcting a moment of injustice, it was about setting in motion a series of moves that would ultimately expose Vanessa's true character to the world. The first chapter of their intertwined destinies closed on that glittering night, with torn fabric in hand and silent promises unspoken, but the tension in the room hinted at the explosive confrontations and unexpected alliances that were soon to follow. Chapter 2: Secrets Unveiled. The morning after the gala, Manhattan awoke under a gray sky, but in the Carlton penthouse, the storm inside Vanessa's mind raged far more intensely. She sat in her silk robe, still fuming, staring at the remnants of Alicia's dress folded neatly on a chair, the very image of what she perceived as humiliation inflicted upon her own social dominance. Yet beneath her anger, a new, unsettling thought had begun to creep in. David had defended that woman. Not mildly, not politely, but firmly, publicly. Vanessa felt a chill she wasn't used to, a prickling sense that her husband's loyalty might no longer be guaranteed, and that the rules of her carefully curated life were beginning to shift in ways she had never imagined. Meanwhile, Alicia was far from defeated. Behind the calm exterior she presented at the gala, a plan was already forming. She had grown up learning that talent and intelligence alone were not enough. Timing, strategy, and the courage to act at the right moment were just as crucial. Alicia had been working as a server at high-profile events for months, not because she lacked ambition, but because it gave her access to people who underestimated her, access to information, and access to opportunities no one would have imagined a waitress could seize. That night, the torn dress incident became her unexpected opening, a chance to turn the tables on the very system that had dismissed her for so long. David, observing Alicia's composure and subtle confidence, made a decision. He called her later that day, not as a patron, but as a partner in something far bigger. "Alicia," he said, his tone calm yet commanding, "what you did last night, your poise, your restraint, it's impressive. But it's also a glimpse of what you could achieve if given the right platform. I want to help you." Alicia, cautious but intrigued, asked why. David smiled slightly, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Because I see potential in you that even my wife couldn't recognize, and that makes all the difference." At the same time, Vanessa's world was starting to unravel. That afternoon, she received a flurry of messages and subtle warnings from her social circle. Gossip spread faster than she could control. Influential guests from the gala were already whispering about the incident, some expressing admiration for Alicia's grace under humiliation, others quietly questioning Vanessa's character. In the digital age, rumors had wings, and Vanessa realized too late that one impulsive act could no longer remain contained. Her public image, the one she had cultivated for decades, was now at risk. Alicia's next move was calculated. She approached David with a proposal that was bold yet compelling. "I know you witnessed what happened, and I understand your position," she began, carefully choosing her words. "But I also know that people like your wife tend to dismiss anyone beneath them. If you truly believe in me, then I need more than just sympathy. I need opportunity, and I have a way to prove that I can deliver results, far beyond what anyone here expects." David listened intently, sensing that Alicia's determination was not just bravado. He asked for specifics, and she outlined a plan that involved a strategic partnership for one of his charitable initiatives, an international project where her skills and multilingual abilities would be critical. It was risky, audacious even, but it was also brilliant. By giving her this chance, David knew he could both empower Alicia and expose the limitations of Vanessa's worldview, without confrontation, just by letting Alicia succeed where Vanessa doubted she could. As Alicia prepared for her first assignment with David, Vanessa grew increasingly obsessed with controlling the narrative. She attempted to speak to mutual acquaintances, sending subtle threats and insinuations designed to undermine Alicia's reputation before she could establish herself. But Vanessa underestimated one critical factor. Alicia had allies now, and David's support carried weight far beyond the social circle Vanessa commanded. Emails, phone calls, and high-level meetings, all orchestrated discreetly by David, began to shift power in Alicia's favor before Vanessa even realized what was happening. Then came the first major twist: Alicia's secret past. Unbeknownst to anyone, Alicia was not just an ambitious young woman scraping by. She had been educated at some of the world's most elite institutions, fluent in multiple languages, and trained in international business and diplomacy. Her work as a server was merely a cover, allowing her to navigate elite spaces unnoticed, gather intelligence, and identify opportunities that others overlooked. Vanessa's assumption that Alicia was just a waitress revealed not only her ignorance but also the dangerous arrogance that had defined her life. When Alicia walked into the Carlton boardroom for her first meeting, dressed impeccably and exuding confidence, Vanessa happened to walk by. She froze, momentarily speechless. The same woman she had humiliated was now commanding attention from her husband, from executives, from people who had previously ignored her. Alicia presented her ideas with clarity, precision, and undeniable competence, and by the end of the meeting, she had earned not just respect but admiration. Vanessa's fury reached a new peak, but it was mixed with fear, a realization that the world she thought she controlled was slipping through her fingers. David's quiet observation of her reactions, his unwavering support for Alicia, and the subtle dismantling of her social authority created a tension that simmered dangerously. Vanessa knew she had to act, but every move she considered seemed either too late or too reckless. Meanwhile, Alicia, fully aware of the stakes, moved deliberately, her every action designed to advance her position while exposing the hypocrisy and prejudice around her. By the end of Chapter 2, the stage was set for an inevitable confrontation. Alicia had proven her talent, David had made his allegiance clear, and Vanessa's veneer of control was cracking. Alliances were shifting, power dynamics were being rewritten, and a new chapter in the story of three intertwined lives was about to unfold, one where assumptions would be shattered, secrets revealed, and the consequences of underestimating someone like Alicia would become painfully clear. Chapter 3: The Reckoning. The city's lights glittered like 1,000 eyes watching the unfolding drama, and the anticipation in Manhattan's elite circles was palpable. Vanessa Carlton, once untouchable in her meticulously curated social empire, was now teetering on the edge of public embarrassment. She had tried to suppress gossip, manipulate allies, and reassert control, but every attempt seemed to backfire. The more she struggled, the more Alicia's quiet ascent shone in contrast, a woman she had torn down publicly now rising with a poise and power Vanessa had never anticipated. The climax arrived at the International Gala, an event even more prestigious than the Astoria gathering. This time, Alicia was not serving drinks, she was leading a presentation on a multi-million-dollar charitable initiative, with David by her side as a silent but firm supporter. The room, filled with dignitaries, business leaders, and influential socialites, held its collective breath. Vanessa entered, her gown dazzling and her smile polished, yet a flicker of unease betrayed the storm within. She could feel eyes shifting, not with admiration for her, but with curiosity and, in some cases, admiration for Alicia. Alicia began her presentation, effortlessly weaving data, strategy, and a compelling narrative about global impact. Her poise was undeniable, her intellect undeniable, and her charisma magnetic. The room responded with applause, nods, and whispered commendations, while Vanessa's forced smile stiffened. She realized, too late, that her earlier assumptions had blinded her, not just to Alicia's talent, but to the changing dynamics of power. Her world, one built on wealth and social positioning, was no longer absolute. Then came the final twist, Alicia's leverage over Vanessa. Alicia revealed a series of partnerships and endorsements she had quietly secured over the past months, all unbeknownst to Vanessa. These deals were with corporations and philanthropists who had previously been loyal to Vanessa's social circle but were now fully aligned with Alicia's vision. The realization struck Vanessa like a physical blow. The very network she had relied upon to maintain dominance was shifting away from her, guided by a woman she had dismissed as just a waitress. David, ever the strategic observer, finally addressed the gathering, praising Alicia not only for her intelligence but for her resilience and integrity. His words carried weight and authority, leaving no room for doubt. Vanessa's attempts to interject, to assert her superiority, were politely but firmly ignored by the audience. The humiliation of the gala incident, the dress, the public tearing, was now reversed in full view, with Alicia commanding admiration where Vanessa once expected it. Vanessa's private confrontation with Alicia came later, away from the cameras and crowds, in the Carlton penthouse. Her tone, once dripping with arrogance, now trembled with a mixture of anger, fear, and begrudging respect. "How did you do it?" she demanded, unable to fully mask the vulnerability beneath her rage. Alicia's response was calm, almost gentle. "I did what anyone with talent and opportunity would do. I didn't need to tear anyone down to rise. I just refused to be underestimated." The final resolution was as dramatic as it was satisfying. Vanessa, faced with the undeniable truth of Alicia's abilities and the shifting allegiances of her social network, was forced to confront her own prejudice and arrogance. She realized that wealth and status, while powerful, could never substitute for character, competence, and the courage to seize opportunities. Meanwhile, Alicia's rise was cemented, not just in the eyes of David or the elite social circles, but in a broader sense. She had exposed the fragility of superficial hierarchies and claimed her place through merit, intelligence, and resilience. In the closing scene, Alicia and David stood together at the edge of the Carlton rooftop, looking out over the city. The lights shimmered below like countless possibilities. "This is only the beginning," David said quietly, acknowledging the challenges ahead but also the potential for change. Alicia smiled, knowing that she had not only rewritten her destiny but had also exposed the toxic assumptions of a world that underestimated her. Vanessa, meanwhile, retreated into reflection. The humiliation, the exposure, the shifting influence, it was a bitter but necessary lesson. The story of that torn dress, that moment of public cruelty, had not ended in shame for Alicia, it had ended in triumph, proving that arrogance and prejudice are always vulnerable to truth, talent, and resilience. And so, the tale closed with a powerful message for anyone watching. Assumptions based on race, class, or status can blind even the most sophisticated minds, but intelligence, courage, and integrity have a way of rewriting the rules, and when they do, the world takes notice.